To me, she was like the white goddess of soul.
Such yearning quality.
Very sensual voice.
That voice.
She was unique.
Since you went away, I've been hanging around. I've been wondering why. I'm feeling down with the way you should make me feel better, but I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. How I'm gonna.
I have a very faulty voice. It lets me down a lot. What I do have, but I'm really grateful for, is the sound of my voice. You know, I sounded this way when I was a kid. If there's any talent involved, it's using it.
Welcome to Definitively Dusty. I'm Tris Penner, and I'm your guide as we pay heartfelt tribute to one of Britain's finest ever singers. Dusty Springfield was an amazing person with a very generous spirit and a great love of animals, especially cats. In this, our final programme, we hear how Dusty's life in California wasn't the American dream she'd hoped for. Addiction, depression, and lack of direction made her almost give up singing. But then, an offer from Pet Shop Boys, who were riding high in the worldwide charts, gave her the boost to return to England and relaunch her career. Finding and enjoying fame again, she returned once more to Nashville to record an album, which sadly turned out to be her last. Speaking to those closest to her and who worked with her, we celebrate her legacy as a great artist and hear some of the vast array of music that she left us.
When my world is turning, when it's turning upside down, when all I see is rain. I really have no patience with the people who refuse to acknowledge their past. I think that's unintelligent, ungrateful, and just plain bad thinking. I think that if I had to spend my life acknowledging my past, and that's all I could do, I'd stop, because I got offered those golden oldie things when things were very slow. I couldn't do it because I knew I'd blow my bloody brains out. I knew that I didn't have the emotional capacity to always be looking back. It's not enough. There's got to be a present and a very real sense of faith in oneself to know there's some form of future.
By 1985, Dusty had spent some time living in Toronto as well as Los Angeles. In March of that year, she was in England to sign a recording deal with Peter Stringfellow, who was starting his own Hippodrome label.
But this man knew nothing about music.
Pat Rhodes, Dusty's PA for over 40 years.
The recording studios were not good, but they did do a recording.
It went on into the night. Stevie Langer and I sang the backing vocals on it, and we were lying on the floor. We were so tired. I'm Simon Bell, and I was backing singer for Dusty from 1978. I think it has something very exciting about it. But it certainly didn't create anything like the sort of interest or success that Dusty would have wanted, or indeed Peter Stringfellow, of course.
I certainly don't remember it being in any charts or anything, and that was an end to the matter. She wouldn't do anything else with him.
My name's Paul Howes, and I'm the author of 2 Dusty books. We really thought after she was signed to Peter Stringfellow's label and just released 1 single and then fled the country back to America, we really thought that was it.
I'm a transient. I always have wanted to be somewhere else. You know, the whole grass is always greener. But I know it's not. But it is just a restlessness in me.
Make love all day.
There are times when I sit on the steps or I walk around the garden and I think, what am I doing here?
It is a nice dream.
And I watch the planes go over because I don't live too far from the airport. And I used to go when I got really nuts with that feeling. Just nothing was happening with my career, with my personal life, anything. So I used to just drive to the airport. It's all very moving. It's people saying goodbye, or it's people weeping goodbye, or it's people greeting.
Nice dream.
I love watching.
So kiss me goodbye. I'm sorry that it went so fast. Our future has become our past. Too good we couldn't last.
Dusty did ask me to go to the States, but I was pregnant with my son. I think had somebody like myself, somebody very sensible, could have helped her over that part of her life, which was, it was all screwed up because she was expecting great things to happen and nothing was happening.
It was a very despondent period in my life and things were not easy at all.
It sent her into a decline where she got caught in with people who had drugs because she had nothing to do. She was drinking and I didn't know this person anymore.
The days are okay. I watch the TV in the afternoon.
I did get very depressed and very despondent. I mean, if you sit around and things are not going your way and you wonder what the hell you should be doing, what else are you going to do? And try and get it reorganized, but not do it on your own. And not feeling comfortable with Los Angeles and feeling sort of awash and adrift.
Good friend Vicky Wickham.
Dusty unfortunately had a history of self-harming, and in those days, none of us understood it.
She started self-harming when she was first here, but it was silly things, just a little cut here and there, sort of screaming for help.
Are you there? Do you care? Are you there?
There were many nights where I would get a call basically saying help and having to go down to the hospital and get her out and look after her.
Oh, I want somebody to love me. Look, have a look. I'm not well, I need somebody. And either I would go rushing up the hospital or Tom or somebody would go up, what we call family, would rush up and see she was all right.
I've essentially always had a reputation as a drama queen anyway.
She needed love.
And in the winter, extra blankets for the cold. Fix the heat again. No, you are with her now. I know I'll live alone forever, not together now.
When she got to America, it got really serious. And that's where everything come unstuck.
The last time I saw her was when I saw her in Los Angeles.
Dusty's MD, Dougie Reese.
No one ever asked of why was it so that Dusty fell apart like she did. Well, I believe she has bipolar. And the adverse effects of being treated wrong caused a lot of the problems she had. Drinking, not sleeping, happy one day, sad the next day.
There was one point where she was in Bellevue Hospital in New York, and they said to me, you know, she thinks she's Dusty Springfield. And I said, yup, I would think she does, because she is. And went to see her, and she was miserable, and eventually got her out. But I really think Dusty was bipolar. I think we didn't know what it was. You know, there was no help for her. Had there been some help, I think a lot of the bad things wouldn't have happened.
In the mid-1980s, a trend of 60s revivalism swept through music, fashion, advertising and the media. And stars from that era were seen as experienced and respected icons. Pet Shop Boys, Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe, were among the first to approach their 60s idol, Dusty Springfield.
Hi, this is Neil.
Hello, this is Chris.
We're the Pet Shop Boys. We wrote What Have I Done to Deserve This with a songwriter called Ali Willis. We were wondering who to record it with, and there was a woman at work called Nikki Slide. She said, "You're always talking about Dusty Springfield. Why don't you ask Dusty Springfield?" We just loved this idea immediately. And Dusty Springfield was approached, or her management was approached, by Tom Watkins, our manager then. And he said, I can't get anywhere with this. And we said, in that case, we won't do it for this album. We've got enough songs. And so we had the hit with West End Girls and all the rest of it. The first album came out.
I'd heard the Pet Shop Boys because I nearly had an accident in the freeway when I heard West End Girls on the car radio. Songs have that effect on me. I have to sit down and drive off freeways. I've been not in a million years thinking I'd work with them.
Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand that's pointing at your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables in a restaurant in a West End town. Call the
Ali Willis called me up and said, I've got a great song that I wrote with the Pet Shop Boys and I want to get it to Dusty. Do you know where she is? And I said, yes, I do. She's in LA and you're in LA. Let me get in touch with her. She sent me a copy. I listened. Oh, my God, this is great. What a great song.
I was just sitting in the garden under a tree and got a phone call. It was from Vicky, and she said, there's this really off-the-wall idea. I'm sending you a tape. It's on its way. I need a fast answer.
Sent it to Dust, and she said, oh, no, not going to do it. I said, Dust, you're mad. It's a Pet Shop Boys record. Whatever happens to the record, nobody's going to say it's Dusty Springfield's fault. It's a great opportunity. And, of course, as usual, it was no, yes.
The tape arrived very fast, and I called Vicky back in about 5 minutes and said, oh, this is really a great idea.
So she went back to England and recorded the song with the boys.
That was really odd, sort of coming in out of nowhere. I was sort of sitting under a tree wondering if I would sing again, to coming here, and doing it. I've always just dropped right in the deep end. I've never, as they say, opened out of town.
In, I think it was December 1986, in Advision Studios, we met Dusty for the first time. And Chris and I were sitting in a corner of the reception area, and suddenly Dusty came in.
It's quite amazing having a legend walking in.
I remember feeling sort of slightly scared, because this is firstly a figure from one's childhood. This is someone who's been on Sunday night at London Palladium and who's made Dusty in Memphis. And so she didn't notice us. And so Chris and I traipsed into the control room where she was talking to our producer, Stephen Hague. And we were introduced to her. And she had this lovely, sort of breathy speaking voice that was very, very charming. And you could tell also she was slightly nervous because, as we've said many times, she said, what do you want me to sound like? And
Petula Clark.
and we said, like Dusty Springfield. And she said, oh, yeah, I think I can do that.
Since you went away, I've been hanging around. I've been wondering why. I'm feeling down. Went away. It should make me feel better, but I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. How I'm gonna get through this. You always wanted me to be something I wasn't. You always wanted too much. Oh, now I can do what I want to forever. How am I gonna get through? How am I gonna get through?
At night the people come and go. They talk too fast and walk too slow. Chasing time from hour to hour. I pour the drinks and crush the flowers. What have I done to deserve this? What have I done to deserve this? What have I?
She said afterwards, a while later, that she thought we'd wanted her to sound like a machine because we were synthesizers and everything. And then Chris and I had to go because we were on The Tube, which was a TV programme, which was recorded in Newcastle. And when we came back, Stephen Hague had recorded the vocal with her.
That was lucky as well, because she famously records a syllable at a time.
Yeah.
We never heard her sing the song all the way through from beginning to end.
No, never. It sounded fantastic. And listening to it, I had an idea for an ad-lib at the end. And Dusty came in and I said, oh, we should do this ad-lib. And she looked horrified because she thought she'd finished the singing. And so this was the only time it's ever happened. Me and Dusty, we stood side by side at microphones with headphones on and sang it together.
Are you singing that ad-lib as well?
Yes, I sing
Yeah,
it
I
too.
never noticed that.
Yeah.
We've learnt something today,
We've learned
then, haven't
something
we?
today, yeah.
I had a vague idea who Pet Shop Boys were, but I didn't really know. Of course, when it happened, I mean, it just seemed so natural. And I really do think that has helped tremendously to keep Dusty's name in the limelight.
That was the saving of Dusty, coming back to this country and recording with the boys. I'll always love them for that because they got her back here. And I felt now she's at home, she's with people that really love her, that can look after her.
I always had this love affair with the dream of America. It's never what you think it's going to be. And it was very, very good to me and very, very bad to me. No, I don't like LA. I like my friends and I miss them. But I wish they'd move somewhere else. Another beautiful day, every day, you know, apart from the mudslides and the earthquakes and the fires, it's the same every day. And I missed England hopelessly. I was trying to sort my life out, but also at that time I had 9 cats. And I couldn't do the quarantine bit. They would have done fine, but I knew I couldn't handle that situation. And when I eventually did think about coming back to Europe, I went to Amsterdam first so that I could watch BBC One and BBC Two from a distance and come in and out and see if I could handle England again. And yes, of course I could. And I could also handle the quarantine. They were fine, I was a wreck. I was only 2 by then.
She came back and said, OK, I've done the drugs, I've done the drink, but I don't do either now. And that was her Irish streak coming out, her strong Irish streak. She put herself into rehab. She got herself sorted out, nobody else. She had very strong help afterwards, but she put herself in. She realised what was happening. And when she first came back here, the first thing she said to me was, I don't touch alcohol, Pat. Don't give me a cake that's got brandy in it, anything. I don't touch it. Once she got clean, she never once deviated from that at all.
Chris and I were asked by the producer of Scandal if we'd write a song for it, sort of theme song. And weirdly, in the late 1970s, I'd written a lyric about the Profumo affair. And Chris basically set it to music. And we thought, this is obviously for Dusty because she was there. And we worked with Julian Mendelsohn, co-producing. The interesting thing we learned in this session was how Dusty arranged her own vocals. In some ways should have been given a production credit because Nothing Has Been Proved is almost a recitative. Mandy's in the papers cause she tried to go to Spain. It's a very little melody. And Dusty obviously realised this, and so she'd obviously worked out what she was going to do. So she gets the headphones on, she's got the cigarette in one hand, the cup of coffee in the other hand, and we get the first line, which is Mandy's in the papers, and she goes, Matt, and stops. And so she goes, oh, OK, can you just start that again? And in those days, you had to wind back the tape, be right back to the start. We start again. Dusty had it cranked up so loud in her headphones, I'm amazed she had any hearing. And Matt. Well, finally we get Matt. And we move on to D. We've got man, and then we get D. Julie and I look at the song sheet, the lyric sheet in front of us, and it's a lot of words. And so we are there for 2 days doing it.
Mandy's in the papers, 'cause she tried to go to Spain. She'll soon be in the dock and in the papers once again. Vicky's got a story about the mirror and the cane. It may be false, it may be true, but nothing has been proved. Stephen's in his dressing gown now, breakfast sing along. Too sick to eat, he's on his feet to the telephone. Please inspect Susan with a sympathetic tone. It may be false, it may be true, but nothing has been proved.
I have a tendency for overkill, to complicate matters, because I don't think my voice is enough. Therefore, I have to invent this kind of vocal decoration and acrobatics and stuff.
She takes the chorus particularly by the scruff of the neck and gives it this incredible Dusty Springfield climax. And it was breathtaking. And she put it together like a sort of pointilliste painter, adding dots, really. It was done so slowly and carefully. It sounded so thrillingly Dusty Springfield. Well, and Dusty, you could see, looked very proud and pleased.
It is the first time I've been able to walk away from a recording session and feel that it will be handled right and it will please me. And that's new. But I had to do it all myself before. I don't anymore. I can't tell you what the relief is like.
We had some friends who used to put on raves for the Sunrise lot, and we did a record with them called
Sunrise.
So we did this sort of track that would sound good at a rave, and nothing really happened with it. Then we worked on it a bit more, and it became Occupy Your Mind with Dusty, and of course, it just sounds fantastic. I love the way she sings that song. It's so uplifting.
She said, Neil, is this a drug lyric? And actually, a friend of mine had given me a medieval religious text. I'd taken the lines from that. I said, no, it's religious. And she said, oh, that's fine. And she really let rip in the studio doing it.
That's one of my favourite songs we've ever done, actually.
In a world so confused, if you feel so confused, believe. In a life so defined, you can find time to change your mind. Believe. In a life so defined, you can find time to change your mind.
We wrote In Private with Dusty in mind, and originally it was written for Scandal, the film. Hence the lyrics about In Private and all the rest of it. We thought it was a good song.
What you gonna say?
And that interval was so Dusty, and Dusty really liked it.
You still want my love? We're in this together.
Dusty knew that we loved the track on Dusty in Memphis, I Don't Want to Hear It Anymore, which is monumentally brilliant. It's a girl who's in love with a guy who's been unfaithful to her, and everyone on the block knows, and you get the gossip being whispered by the backing singers.
So discreet. She's so discreet. I never tried to meet.
Dusty said, you like that, why don't we do this on In Private?
I took a backseat between. And what you gonna say? In private, you still want my love. We're in this together.
I'm Simon Bell. I was Dusty's backing singer from 1978 until 1999. Working with her in the studio was an interesting experience for me, particularly as she was my hero. And I thought she could do anything and very easily. And she made it very hard for herself. It's well known that she would drop in a syllable or a couple of words or something. Everything was marked out very precisely. She knew exactly what she was going to do before she got there. She had little ticks above words where she was going to bend it and all of that kind of thing. I don't know any other singer who works like that. Most of them just go in and sing the song. But the difference between Dusty and most other singers, I think, is that she was a real artist. It wasn't just singing. She was putting something down that was important. She really is trying to get perfection.
They're gonna want you. They're gonna love you. They're gonna make your dreams come true. They don't wanna read you. They're gonna steal you. Oh, they're gonna take my dreams away. Will you take your lover away?
She didn't have any of this sort of soul snobbery about she'd be a real band. She loved working with machines. She thought this was fantastic. We did a song we always really, really loved as well, called Daydreaming, which we always thought would be a single.
She raps really well in that. Probably the first and only time she raps.
You don't commit to me, you won't make a start. You don't tell me no, you haven't got the heart. You sit in a chair or you lie in bed with a faraway stare and a swollen head. Well, listen here, my lover, I have had.
And she was really thrilled. I remember phoning up a friend in Los Angeles and playing it down the phone in the studio, saying, hey, listen to me rap.
Who gets up and does what he's thinking of. I can't wait another day. I can give and I can take. There's a choice you have.
We always thought that should have been the next single after In Private.
So many times things pass you by. Imagination running wild. You got to stop choosing right from wrong instead of daydreaming.
We suspected that Dusty felt people were just seeing her at this point in her career. It's all thanks to the Pet Shop Boys. And we could sympathise that that was maybe irksome in a way.
I want to catch a plane to an open space. I want to feel the sun shining on my face. But time is short and waiting is long. My patience is exhausted. I'm just not that strong. I want to see the parade. You want to watch TV, so we don't do either. It's insanity. You say there's plenty of time and life is good, so you never make your mind up. Well, you never could.
When we finished those half of that album, we didn't know at the time that was it, actually. I don't even know that we even saw her again.
So many times things pass you by. Imagination running wild.
The Reputation album was released in 1990, and it was her first new studio album in over a decade. Reputation resurrected Dusty's career, selling over 60,000 copies within 2 weeks of release and earning her a silver disc, her biggest selling new studio album since her debut way back in 1964. Critics praised it, saying it was a long overdue return to form for Dusty. It also meant she was back living in the UK.
If people grew up with you and you were very much part of their evolvement as human beings, i.e. the 60s, and then you go away, which I did for quite some time, 15 years or so, you come back, they expect you to be the same person. They forget that they're not. I mean, if you go and sit, I don't know, in Marlow, I went to a tea room there, and the waitress said, oh, you have changed, don't you? And I thought, well, you bloody have to. Excuse my language, you know. Have you looked in the mirror recently? We're both older, I wanted to say. But she had still seen me that way.
She loved all-day breakfasts and teas, although she drank black coffee and Diet Coke.
That period was lovely for her because she could go out and she could buy things. When she first started getting money in, she paid all her debts first, but now she was free to go out and buy like different furniture, which she did.
We went to Habitat once. The way it was set out on the display wasn't the shape of her room, so I had to move it all. And I sort of looked around, really embarrassed, The people sussed out that, oh, it's Dusty Springfield, just let her do it. She got away with stuff like that all the time.
She decided she was going to have a keep fit machine. So we went up to the sports department. I said, well, if you're going to start off gradually, Dust, I said, have an exercise bike. So she said, will you get on and pedal? I had to get on with my outdoor clothes on and sit there pedalling on this bike.
And she bought it, and it stayed in her room and never got used. Now that's Dusty.
We got into Chris's car, Chris's Audi Quattro, maybe. And
Well, I
Chris's-
don't think we need to know the model,
and
the make and model,
Well, no,
the colour.
we got into this little car and Dusty sat in the back seat with Chris's dog. And Dusty was really enjoying this, saying, oh, can you believe we're doing this? And we went out for dinner with her in a restaurant in Chelsea. And when we came in, the whole restaurant looked round. That was the only time, really, we saw Dusty with the public. And you realised, God, she's still got it.
The nice thing that's happening, I mean, I can only judge it on the fan mail I get, which is far more than I deserve. I get it quite a lot, which is amazing. And it's the cross-section of people who discovered me, yes. The younger set did discover me with Neil and Chris. But then they go and start digging out back catalogue, which you wouldn't expect them to do because it's so different to anything I did with the Pet Shop Boys. Get these sort of 14-year-olds who've actually gone and dug out things that were done in the 60s and are very knowledgeable about it all of a sudden. So it's deeply flattering. And then you get sort of people who are 80-year-olds who have enjoyed the Pet Shop Boys stuff too. So in a way, that really was a big change in my life. I was looking for a reason to sort of come back to Europe in general. Wasn't sure where I wanted to be. And it just dropped into my life. Again, as all good things do.
Every time we played a gig for a week or so, every conductor and everyone in the orchestra would get a little present. If you had a row with Dusty and she knew she was wrong, she couldn't say sorry, bless her, but she would buy you a little present. She had a very loving nature.
Come and tell me everything is alright. You kiss and tell me everything's alright. Then I get away again tonight. The only boy who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man.
All my life, I wanted to do something where I didn't have to be me, a part of me. And I got offered a tour version of Grisabella and Cats. And having seen it so many times, I knew that I was meant to play that part because I'm a cat fanatic. I actually wanted to be an actress, not a singer, but that was before I invented Dusty Springfield. Now it takes me so much to become Dusty Springfield, to become another character on top of Dusty Springfield might be beyond me, but to become a cat is something quite different because I'm quite sure I was a cat in another life. I really agonized over that because my heart wanted to be Grisabella. I wanted to do Follies too, because that is the ultimate when you have to be another human being in a show.
Lush velvet sometimes.
You know that song? Da 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 da. But I'm here. One song stops the show every night, 20 minutes on stage, and then you can go home, come back for the bows and go back to bed. I thought, what could be better than that?
And I'm here.
You're listening to Definitively Dusty on BBC Radio 2. In July 1993, Vicky Wickham, who was by now Dusty's manager, got a call from Kip Crones at Columbia Records saying he was a big fan and wanted to sign Dusty. The result was an album called A Very Fine Love, which took her back to Nashville.
Never knew how good love could be. All I've ever known was make-believe. So many times I played the fool, baby, till I met you.
It started out to be an idea that I'd had for about 3 years, that I wanted to go back there because when I was there with the Springfields, they asked me to stay. And I didn't want to do that kind of music. I've probably owned a whole town by now or something. Dusty Land. It just wasn't the time. And so I took this massive scenic route to go all the way back again, and it's a full circle. I think about things hard enough and they will happen. Out of the blue, it dropped into my lap.
You know it when you find one shining like a diamond. It's so fine, a very fine love.
You can't record in Nashville and not. There are gonna be some sounds, but they're not country songs per se. It's more, I would say, what Americans call adult contemporary and what we call pop.
I'm Tom Shapiro and was lucky enough to produce Dusty Springfield's album, A Very Fine Love, in 1995. In the studio, we used Nashville musicians, and she had tremendous respect for them. Was constantly amazed how quickly they could pick up the songs and get them done.
I mean, I just truly fell in love with a whole lot of them. They just gave me such a wonderful bass to sing with.
Every day when I look in the mirror, I try to see where my soul's at now. Every day is it further, nearer, on the way? Will I find it somehow?
She wanted to have the tracks recorded while she was there, I think to co-produce, but she did not sing on the tracking dates. She was very self-conscious of her voice, which blew me away because she has obviously one of the great voices, but she did not want to sing in front of these musicians. I talked to Jerry Wexler because, quite honestly, I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. And Jerry said that she is extremely insecure. When she did her record, Dusty in Memphis, with him, she did not do the vocals with the guys who did the tracks. She wanted to be alone.
If only wants a good time, baby. There's a party down the street.
You know, you have a person with this gift, and that gift can do wonderful things, and it can make her crazy, and sometimes make those around her a little crazy.
If you're looking for a game to play, well, I wish you love.
But that's part of being, you know, that gifted.
'Cause all I have to offer you is love.
I asked specifically, could I please record in somewhere that didn't look like a recording studio? And the place that fitted that request was a place called Bennett House, which is an old Southern house. And I actually sang in the front dining room, which was miles away from the recording control booth, which I love because I can't stand that glass. I feel as though I'm in some kind of stress tunnel. So I actually sort of sang in the middle of this huge dining room with very high ceilings. I just plonked a mic and a mat down and had a really good time.
But all I have to offer you is love. Sweet love, baby. 'Cause all I got to offer you is love.
I was called one night by a guy named John Jarvis, songwriter. Said he had an A+ song. Sent it to me, and that night I called him back and I said, I will be shocked if she doesn't cut it. The song is Go Easy on Me.
I hear you, baby. Know how you feel. We're both hungry for something that's real.
Now, at the time, we didn't know she wasn't well. She'd get some laryngitis or her voice would give out, and we would have her maybe sing an hour to an hour and a half a night, and then we'd kind of put together what we had.
She was very tense, and the engineers were very good, but they couldn't understand that she couldn't get it. But another time, she'd get part of it, and then the voice just wasn't there. So it was very upsetting because she knew what she wanted to do and she couldn't do it.
I'll go easy on you if you don't mind.
We did a lot of takes. You know, you had to keep working. It took a long time, but of course, she just did an amazing job. deeply, deeply touched me. I almost started crying.
Starting over isn't easy as it sounds. When you're trying to make the pieces fit, they all fall down.
For some reason, I thought that I would be allowed to sing songs where I was actually comfortable in my own skin and my own voice and didn't sound as though I was going to explode in the next chorus. And most of the songs turned out that way. They're rather relaxed. But I can't get away with it ever. It's the ones that work best are the ones where I sound as though I'm going to explode on the next verse.
We went to the voice coach who looks after everybody, Dolly Parton, all the big stars, and he couldn't find out what was wrong. He said, there is something wrong, he said, but I can't put my finger on it. And he said to me, when she gets home, get her to go straight to a cancer hospital.
On a return to England, Dusty did see a doctor and went for tests at the Royal Marsden Hospital. While waiting for the results, she returned to the studio and finished her vocals for a duet with Daryl Hall, Wherever Would I Be, a song she'd gotten from Diane Warren.
I just got her phone number and more or less called her up. It was Thanksgiving Day and I was going to leave a message saying, could you call me? She was actually there. And she played me some stuff over the phone and she played me Wherever Would I Be.
When my world is turning, when it's turning.
And I said, yeah, it's really commercial, but I'm not really I'm looking for up-tempo thing. She sent me the tape, and I couldn't get away from the song. It just struck me as being a very strong tune.
When I think the night won't end, I just think of you.
The thing with Daryl really came up was it just lent itself to being a duet. You get a much more, I wouldn't say bombastic feel, but certainly a tougher edge to it.
Wherever would I be without you? If I didn't have you, if I didn't have you, whatever would I do now, baby? Wherever would I be without you? I'd be nowhere, nowhere. I'd be nowhere, nowhere.
Dusty had also chosen a song written by country music singer Katie Oslin, Where Is a Woman to Go?
I'd had a few phone conversations that were extremely funny with Katie Oslin, and she sounded like my kind of person. Both of us are fiercely irreverent about her work. And she thought it was a great idea that I was doing one of her songs. Having heard my original solo version, girl, don't you ever sing a country song, you'll drive us all out of town. She's from Texas. And I thought, no one could pay me a higher compliment. And I just said, well, why don't you sing with me, would you? And, she just said yes. And then we just thought we should really just ask Mary Chapin Carpenter, whom I didn't know at all and never met. And the next day she showed up. So it was just obviously something we all wanted to do. And it was a really joyous experience.
She's feeling alone, and all she wants to do is feel a little better.
The test results revealed that Dusty had breast cancer, and she underwent radiotherapy, which meant the release of A Very Fine Love album was held back until she went into remission.
You brush by me, and my whole facade just melts.
I'm Carol Pope, and I'm a singer-songwriter. Dusty and I had a relationship, and we lived together. We understood what it was like to be an artist and what you had to go through and getting your ego slammed. She wanted somebody who she could lean on, who was a soulmate, certainly that way. It was a roller coaster ride. for sure, but I mean, I'm so glad that she was in my life, and I learned a lot from her, and I was inspired by her. She was such a unique person.
I know this is just a psychopathic dream.
If Dusty were here today and her relationship would be with women, I don't think she would have to keep it under covers. I think she very much would be having her girlfriend go with her, be out, be introduced.
I'm Nona Hendryx. I'm a singer-songwriter. There is a generation now who they're fearless about who they love. I don't know whether Dusty would have been able to free herself and enjoy the freedom that we're having and approaching. Maybe. With the friends that I know she would have had if she had the same friends, I think, yes.
Can't seem to get a grip on your love.
In 1996, Dusty's cancer recurred, and sadly, A Very Fine Love proved to be her final studio album. When she died on the 2nd of March 1999, at the age of 59, her death was headline news around the world.
Hundreds of people, show business personalities and members of the public have attended the funeral of the pop star Dusty Springfield at Henley-on-Thames in Oxford.
Tributes were made by Elvis Costello and Neil Tennant from the Pet Shop Boys, the band that did so much to refine...
She epitomised the 60s to me. The voice was so beautiful, it hooked me from the start.
It's very tragic she's died so young.
She was the most wonderful singer we've ever known.
Wreaths were left from Elton John, the Rolling Stones and Sir Paul McCartney, all for a woman described as Britain's greatest female soul singer.
As an influential force, Dusty Springfield has had an enormous effect on generations of performers. For them, she remains an outstanding artist, a civil rights advocate, an exemplary performer and an amazing singer. Above all, her recordings are timeless classics and are still absolutely relevant today. She has left an incredible music catalogue for us all to hear.
In the cool of the evening when everything is getting kind of groovy.
There's always something in Dusty's catalogue that will fit or be appropriate.
Would I like to go with you and see a movie?
Like Spooky, for instance, which became so popular.
First I say no, I got some plans for tonight, and then I stop and say
One of my favorite songs is Live It Up because it's so up-tempo. Like, let's party, let's live it up.
Now you work all week just to make that money, yeah. Waiting for the weekend to finally come, yeah.
I do have a favourite song. It's I Had a Talk With My Man. That big voice was what initially attracted me to her.
I had a talk with my man last night. He reassured me everything was still alright.
My favourite song is If You Go Away. It captured that part of Dusty that she didn't really like to share a lot with people, and she could only really share it through singing.
If you go away on this summer day, then you might as well take the sun away. All the birds that flew in the summer sky when our love was new and our hearts were high, when the day was young and the night was long and the moon stood still.
My favourite Dusty song is I Don't Want to Hear It Anymore from Dusty Memphis. The song is so beautiful. I think it's by Randy Newman.
He don't really love her. That's what I heard them say. He sure wasn't thinking of her today. He wasn't thinking of her.
The sort of pain that Dusty puts across, I just find it incredibly moving.
Well, there are so many songs of Dusty's that I absolutely love, but one particular favourite is I'd Rather Live While I'm in Love, which is one of her 70s songs.
I'd rather leave while I'm in love, while I still believe.
I mean, there's such yearning quality to her vocal. I mean, you just can't get enough of them.
I keep my dreams and just pretend that you and I were never meant to end. Too many times I've seen the roads down.
I listen to her now and am amazed at the absolute uniqueness of her voice. Within 2 or 3 notes, you know who that is.
The look of love.
I was a big Bacharach David fan. The Look of Love, it's one of my favorite songs of theirs, and I'd heard the Dionne Warwick version, and there may have been another version, but hers was the superior one. It was so sexy.
The look of love.
Even notes that are off, like there's one note that isn't absolutely on pitch on The Look of Love. Who cares? She sang it in a way that no one else could.
What my heart has heard, well, it takes my breath away.
She was a unique voice. There is no other voice like Dusty Springfield, and there never will be.
She is such an ultimately brilliant singer. Dusty has got the magic.
A magnificent interpreter of songs. You could hear a lot of emotions, whether it be pain, joy, all at the same time, and there are very few singers who are going to be able to do that.
She could do country, she could do folk, she could do jazz, but what she actually did best was something different from all those things. She did Dusty Springfield.
I think I'm going back to the things I learned so well in my youth. I think I'm returning to those days when I was young enough to know the truth. Now there are no games to only pass the time. No more coloring books, no Christmas bells to chime. But thinking young and growing older is no sin. And I can play the game of life to win.
Through her music, Dusty Springfield remains very much alive, now and forever. I'm Tris Penner, and my thanks to Vicky Wickham, to sound designer Peregrine Andrews, and to researcher Paul Howes, and to everyone who contributed to these programmes. Definitively Dusty is a Sue Clark production.
Let everyone debate the true reality. I'd rather see the world the way it used to be. A little bit of freedom's all we lack. So catch me if you can. I'm going
This is Radio 2 on the BBC Sounds app, on digital radio, and on 88 to 91 FM.
Radio 1.
Thank you, Newsby. Right, it's Monday, it's 6 o'clock. Usually it's just me, but today, added bonus of two great people. First